and welcome to Capital Market Live on Channels Television. I'm Will Ibang. First, let's check in on how stocks performed this week. And we're going to zoom in on the all-share index and the market cap of the NGX. We saw it had a fantastic close. The ASI climbed more than 1%. To close up the week. Stocks look set to snap the run of pre-election year losses. It's seeming like this year is going to be more of a Santa rally compared to what we saw last year. Now, this week's highlight, we also had the Nigerian Exchange Group holding their 2022 edition of its Made of Africa Awards. And that's, it was an hybrid event which was held in Lagos, and it was aimed at rewarding organizations and individuals that had exhibited excellence in value creation and impact on the Nigerian capital market. Now, that's one of the highlights. And then the icing on the cake was the NGX, the closing of the all-share index on the markets, up 1.51%. That's back-to-back. Last week, the previous week, we had 1.6, about 1.68% to close. The NGX is really on a bull run, I would want to say. Now, to discuss this event and other issues, I have with me in the studio Mr. Rotimi Fakayejo, capital market analyst, is also economic and capital market analyst, joining us to share his perspectives. Good evening. It's always good to have you. Good evening. Now, we want to talk about the awards. If I remember correctly, it started off in 2012 as the CEO Merit Award, and now it has morphed to the Made of Africa. We're taking on a whole new face, so Made of Africa Awards that we're seeing right now. And it used to be CEOs being recognized and quoted companies, but now they've incorporated individuals, and companies are not even quoted on the exchange. Why do you think this happened?
I think the whole concept is to make it more broad-based and also to encourage unlisted equities to see the value in listing. And it is a great encouragement because much as the award is about quoted companies, it's also about players in the market. So we have different categories by which each of those companies are actually recognized. So it's really basically making known that value is appreciated. Okay. It's not a competition per se, but it's just an overall assessment that these people are adding value, and they can also be trusted when it comes to corporate governance. Okay, that's good.
But before we continue, let's take a quick look at what happened at the event.
Tagged Innovation in Capital Markets, the panacea for exponential growth, this year's edition of the prestigious award hosted by the Nigerian Exchange brought together key stakeholders in the capital market to recognize their outstanding performance in multiple categories.
You're welcome.
The event had in attendance several important dignitaries, including the Executive Governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, who gave a special remark at the occasion.
The importance of the capital markets cannot be overemphasized, particularly at a time like this, when we seek to rebuild our country from the ruins of the past. We must all work together to ensure the existence of a fair, transparent, and efficient capital markets.
Then comes the much-awaited moment, the awards presentation.
If we could have you center stage for the photo, please.
Chairman of the NGX Group, as well as the CEO of NGX Limited, expressed satisfaction with the outcome of the annual event.
Awardees is based on verifiable data that was verified by third party PwC. So I'm very satisfied with the process and with the outcomes. And I congratulate all the awardees.
I think the big thing that we'll see is we expect more products. We expect a diversified set of products, and the award should reflect that. We also hope that there'll be a lot more listings by this time next year. There's an incoming administration. We hope that that also brings, on top of the gains that we've had, a lot more listings, a lot more transactions in the capital markets, and the award should reflect that.
Established in 2012 as NSE CEO Awards, the Made of Africa Awards have been reviewed to reflect the dynamic nature of the market and promote inclusivity following the successful demutualization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange and the launch of the NGX brand.
So that was that report. I still have Mr. Fakajo back to you. And this year is the first time, as I was saying earlier, that they made it the Made of Africa Award. And we had the CEO, Temi Pupola, that's the CEO of the NGX Limited, talking about more listings and more transactions. Do you think this Made of Africa Award, you're talking about encouraging corporate governance, do you think it's going to encourage more organizations, especially the unquoted ones, to come in and be players in the market?
Definitely it will, because if you look at the space of last year and this year, you've had quite some substantial listings. You've had Girigu coming on board, and also I think one or two other ones. But one thing that is very key at this point in time is it talked about inclusiveness. So even much as there's some unquoted companies, the unquoted companies that stay outside the corridor of the NGX, by doing a thing like this, by having this kind of award event, definitely will encourage more unquoted companies to come along. Mm. And now that we have the FMDQ exchange, it's definitely going to be like a good run for the NGX. And I believe definitely that people will see more value and the creativity that will come on board, which will make people to align more with the NGX.
Now, also at the event, at the Made of Africa event, Channels Television ran into the former Director General of the then Nigerian Stock Exchange, that is Dr. Ndiokereke Onyekwe, yes. And she had something interesting to say about the NNPC. Let's take a listen to what she had to say, really.
Okay.
List NNPC on the stock exchange for all Nigerians that want to buy shares of NNPC, even if it's 10 naira, 10,000, 5,000, 20,000, you can buy and become a shareholder. And if it's that NNPC is thrown to the market now, I guarantee you that 90% of the shares will be bought by Nigerians. Then the government can keep a little controlling shares, like about 10-15%. If they want. But the government really has no business running business. Government has no business running business. So if they want to NNPC to survive, for NNPC to be what it ought to be to Nigerians, it has to be quoted on the stock exchange.
That's the former DG of the NSC, Dr. Okereke Onyekwe, talking about the listing of the NNPC and its benefits to the stock exchange. Now, we're talking about new players. NNPC ought to be a new player in the NGX. The director, that's the GMD of the NNPC, that's Miliki Yari, did say that the NGX is going to list mid-2023. Do you see this happening anytime soon?
Well, it's possible. You know, now that they have a new board, they are running like a profit-oriented company. At least starting from the beginning, from the time it was listed, the transition took place. And I think we could take a cue from what is happening in Aramco in Saudi Arabia. Aramco is the largest corporation in the world. And be that as it is, I think it's definitely going to, if NNPC should be done as it should be, then definitely it may turn out being the largest corporation in Africa.
Yeah, so what do you think are the inhibitions? What's stopping NNPC from listing as in that? We've not seen anything in the offing. We've not seen any moves. Or have you seen moves that we've not seen about NNPC listing?
Well, most times when things like this do happen, the process is always under the table with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Nigerian Exchange. When it has gone to a great extent, then it is brought to the open. Though there is no secrecy about whatever is happening, but most times the documentations and every other thing will have been in process while the news is still kept away from the public. So when the news comes, then definitely the timing for next year may still be achievable.
Now, you talked about NNPC being, if it's listed, being one of the largest corporations in Africa. At the moment, according to what the CBN governor said, that the NNPC remitted $0 to the forex reserves from its crude oil sales. How are they going to be a profitable company if they're not even remitting any forex to the country's reserves?
Well, the problem with the NNPC, unlike any other Nigerian corporation, is hydra-headed. And I think government knows very much about what is happening. And the only thing that could happen to any corporation is to make the operations transparent. So once it is transparent, then definitely accountability will set in. Presently, there's nobody asking NNPC any question. But the moment they come to list on the exchange, like the language that we use at the exchange, that you have come to undress publicly. So you can be scrutinized, you can be questioned, you can be held accountable. So once that is happening, we're going to see a whole lot of difference. And I believe strongly that they should be prepared that this time around is not going to be business as usual as we used to have it in the past. So I think a whole lot of things are going to happen. And we've seen quite a few government corporations being listed. We saw those days Lafarge was WAPCO, Ashaka Cement, and a whole lot were in the hands of the government. But when they let off, we started seeing profitability in those companies. So the profitability will come in, which will make them more viable and more sustainable.
You think the government is ready to let go of the NNPC?
They don't have a choice.
So what do you think? What would you recommend that the NNPC steps they should start taking right now to ensure that the listing is actually actualized, is realized, and not, just on paper? And we're just going to be hearing about the listing, the proposed listing. It's just going to be more like, yes, it's been listed and Nigerians can come and buy.
Well, the first thing that ought to have been done has already been done, which is the unbundling, which has already been achieved. So I believe every other thing shouldn't be that difficult, because it is no more Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, as you used to know it. It's now Nigerian National Petroleum Company, and a limited liability company at that. So definitely we're going to see events happening in quick succession. And as long as that be, then definitely may still be able to meet up with the timeline. But I want to believe they are serious about it. Because we've seen pronouncements like this before. In years past, it didn't work. But in recent past, we've seen things working. So I want to believe that they know what they are doing, and they are ready to surprise everybody. That's not going to be as it used to be.
So before we just back to the next conversation, and I want to talk about the close for the NGX this week. Back to back, Mr. Bakayojo, how do you see the NGX closing 1.51% higher? And in last week, we had about 1.69%. So what do you say are the market movers? I know Boa Cement it shook the market this week, and we saw Airtel Africa as well and other stocks, doing their thing. But what would you say is the wow factor for this week?
I think one thing we need to know and bear in mind is that there is value in the market. So wherever there is value, there will be appreciation. So we saw Guinness is been at the very low for quite a while, but we saw it turning around suddenly. It's quite expected. So because there is value in the market, most of the companies that are doing well, they're not just is not any how will I say it now? It's not abracadabra. People are seeing value. We saw the banking sector stocks go down. GT coming to as low as 16, Zenith Bank coming to as low as 19, and now Zenith Bank is at about 22. And it's still going to go much further. So definitely it is a value proposition in those stocks that is actually drawing the kind of attention that we are seeing, and also the upward movement of the prices.
The Debt Management Office, as the DMO says, the federal government will issue a green bond to finance the 2023 budget. The DMO says the federal government is looking at ways to finance capital projects and plug the 2023 budget deficit of 10.78 trillion naira. Mr. Fakayojo, capital market analyst, is still in the studio to shed more light on this. Mr. Fakayojo, starting off, I'm curious to know, and I'm sure most of our audience or viewers would want to know, is it a standard practice for governments of a country to issue green bonds to fund budgets of the country?
Well, the statement coming from the DMO is very laughable, because if you look at the green bond done in previous, the times that has been done here in Nigeria, the total value is about 45.2 billion naira. Now, what is the quantum of 45.2 billion naira relative to the budget that is in trillions? So I want to believe that is just, I don't know what to say, because I don't want to say things that are too very outrageous. But the most important thing here is that the green bond, whatever value that they want to do, is not sufficient to have any sufficient impact on the budget.
She did mention that it's for projects, for infrastructure and some other things. But I know that green bonds are for sustainable projects.
Yes.
So is it that they want to intend to use other sources as well as the green bonds to, kind of like put them together and see if that's going to plug that hole that they found themselves? Because right now we have about 21 for the budget, total budget is about 20.5 trillion naira, and then we have a deficit of almost half of it is deficit. So how do they intend to raise this money? Do you think investors, and the question is, how do you think investors are going to perceive the green bonds?
Well, I still insist that the raising of the green bond is not going to be in any way substantial to affect the budget, except if they want to put all of their focus, every other bond raising that they're going to use, except they're going to call it green bond. But otherwise, because I just see it as just mere nomenclature coming from the Nigerian government. Green bond are supposed to be environment and climate friendly. So if that be the case, it's just a change of name to regular bond that they want to do, coming from the government. But in other climes, it's not always so. But the thing is, we have half of the budget deficit. A good quantum of that we have very, very small portion for capital expenditure. Debt financing is taking a huge chunk. Overhead and other recurrent expenditure is taking a substantial chunk. So what we are going to see is not anything to really excite anybody. And that is what happened in 2020. That is what happened in 2021. If you are borrowing to sustain consumption, then one day you may not be able to borrow again.
If you're talking about the appetite for it and the excitement or the attraction for the bond, do you think investors, and I'm talking about both international and domestic investors here, how do you think they're going to price these green bonds if they are issued, especially with the downgrades we've had from credit ratings agencies like Fitch?
Definitely, the price is going to be much higher for anybody to put his hand in it. So, and the higher it is, the worse it is for Nigeria.
Because it's not costly for them to now pay back. The debt servicing is at a higher rate now.
So the debt profile will continue to rise, and our rating will continue to diminish. So all in all, I still see a situation whereby they should look elsewhere. Because what are they actually financing? We've seen the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway being under reconstruction in the last 8 years and yet not completed. With the way it's running, this administration may not complete it because they've closed down the process now. They're not going to resume until maybe mid-January. Mid-January, as we enter into February, we're going to be talking about election. Then shortly after that, one election issue or the other. So they may not really conclude. So, but one thing that we should have asked the government and those that are running it is what infrastructure has been done over the years. How friendly is the Nigerian economy for people to bring in funds and invest? Most funds are going to other African countries. Nigeria is the least considered when it comes to foreign portfolio investments. And these are things they should have looked at. You should rather have enabling environment that will make people to bring money and invest, bring their own money freely into your economy, rather than for you to go and borrow on and on from them. Because if the environment is very friendly, we have the population, we have the market. So what they need to do is just to ensure that there is a good ambience for business to take place. And they can bring in billions of dollars to invest in our economy. And that will take off all this that we are seeing.
You're already talking about some things that I want to say, because she said the aim of the green bonds is to plug the deficit and, you know, for the capital project as well. But that's still looking at the bond market, and we are going to the bond market to borrow. Looking at our debt service to revenue ratio, what other alternatives would you propose for the Nigerian government instead of going straight all the time to the bond market and in piling up, as you say, our debt profile?
Well, one thing that is very germane is that, is Nigeria a productive country? The answer is no. More than 80% of our consumption are imports. And we export raw in terms of crude, in terms of cocoa, in terms of other agricultural commodities. So why can't they look around and say, okay, we want to see how we can make our economy more productive, what can enable the industries to begin to produce more, and we import less. And the first question that comes to that, or the first answer to that, is let there be power. If there is good power supply, most of the companies that are now moribund will definitely pick up. And if that happens, then definitely as well, we're going to see more employment, we're going to see more productivity, we're going to see less imports. Then if we now go ahead to focus the few things that we produce here in Nigeria, I mean the raw materials, instead of allowing it to go the way it is, we should escalate it to the next level.
So value addition, add value to
exactly, whereby value will be added. We've seen countries like Rwanda do that. So there is no way we can get out of this doldrum as long as we export whatever we produce raw. And as much as our appetite for imported goods continue to remain high.
The CBN is actually trying to do something like that in its RT 200 program, the FX program that is doing for exporters, and that's the non-oil exporters. And they said the monies that were paid to them, as in terms of rebate, were for those that exported finished goods and not raw materials, those that benefited from it. Would you say that it is gaining a lot of traction? Do you think people are buying into that, and it's actually going to encourage people to start maybe making, instead of exporting raw materials, start exporting finished goods? Do you think that program is enough to make exporters go into the manufacturing and boost manufacturing, going beyond exporting raw to finished material goods?
Definitely. I think one thing that is always good is take the first step. Encourage continuity. Then you will see the whole thing becoming very, very sustainable. So the CBN governor has taken the step to encourage exportation of finished goods, give a lot of encouragement and incentives. Then that way, more people will come on board. And one other thing that is very key as well at this time is that we need not continue the way we are doing. But one other thing that is going to help the economy, because I speak with people sometimes, I say that the lifeline of Nigeria is in the hand of Aliko Dangote.
Could you expatiate on that?
Because now it's going to help the entire economy a lot when the refinery takes off. Because the effects that goes into the importation of petroleum refined products, that is going to be saved. Jobs are going to be created, and also the multiplier effect of that particular industry. So the point is, Dangote is one person. The money went to borrow. the CBN with the local banks will have arranged that money for him within, even at a single interest rate, because it's going to help back the economy at the long run. So 2023, when the refinery takes off, I think it's going to give a lot of breather to the economy. And that is why I believe that starting from 2023, things are definitely going to look better and get better.
Definitely, we'll look forward to that, Mr. Fakayojo. Mr. Rotimi Fakayojo, capital market analyst. It was great having you share your perspective on the program today. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And that's it on Capital Market. Do join us same time next week. Don't forget to watch this again on our YouTube page at Channels Television. Also follow us on our other social media platforms to get updates. I'm Will Ibang. It's bye for now.